Hi, guys. So I'm Elizabeth Nelson. I'm one of the co-founders of Smart Building Certification. I'm also one of the scientists involved in Smart Building Certification. And so today, and talking about this, I'm really excited to talk about the future of smart buildings, because I think that for the first time, we've had such a huge insight of what that future looks like, and the future looks bright. So that's wonderful. And I want to talk about the aspects of smart buildings that are still being defined. I think there is this huge need to say, what is a smart building? And absolutely, we need to say what a smart building is, because things are very undefined right now, but things are also evolving. So when we launched Smart Building Certification a year ago, one of the things I said was that everybody wants to know what a smart building is. But I think the better question, and maybe the more understandable and human question, is, why do we want a smart building? What do we want to do there? And when we get to the why, we can really start dismantling the situation and looking at this from a great aspect and point of view. And so we've put a little definition of what we think a smart building is, and I'm very curious. So please put things in the chat if you have questions or you want to start a discussion. And we believe a smart building is a building's ability to use data to adapt, evolve, and optimize to better meet the needs of its stakeholders. And those stakeholders are very important. So yeah, exactly. Thank you, Voucher. What is your definition of a smart building? Please put your insight there. And the stakeholders within a smart building are very important, and they're also getting a little bit more airtime right now, and their voice is being heard. One of the things about the pandemic was the users got so much more involved with the building. The demands of what they wanted from a building, what they want from their own jobs or experiences, has become a lot louder. So right now we have a much more even discussion between buildings, property managers, and such, users, and then the financial industry, which of course is usually running the show in the end game. Within builders, it's money in the end. But when we talk about this, we really get more of a holistic look at this. And one of the things that we really believe with smart building is it is an ecosystem, and it has to serve everyone, and it has to represent those people. So what do we mean by that? One thing that's really interesting about an ecosystem is that there can be a million different types of one. And that's why a certification can't be a perfect scenario, a checklist of doing things right or doing things wrong. There's a lot of ways to get to the end destination, and sometimes the wrong train gets you to the right station. And we've seen the agility of technology companies now and what they've been able to do in terms of changing their solution to help COVID, to work for people in different ways, to make things safer and healthier. Instead of facilitating certain things with occupancy, for example, they can facilitate temperature measurement, they can facilitate the right proportion of distance between people, and really looking at it that way. So I think when we talk about smart buildings, it's really about this evolution in how we talk about it. What do we say that it's there? And there is an evolution of how we do that. What else? At Smart Building Certification, we've done quite a few buildings now. We've done some that we can talk about. We've done some that we can't. And what we've seen is that it's an amazing tool for looking at different aspects of the building. And it doesn't have to be necessarily a fantastically smart building, but it can be something that it's just looking into what's going on to hopefully the brain of your structure, and what is running this data collection, this measurement, this facilitating changes and optimizations, and doing that. So I think one of the things that I could talk about in terms of the future is really some of the buildings that we've done recently. We've done a lot of case studies, and what we've seen is that there's a few key aspects of buildings that we would say are really future proof. I said I was going to talk about the future, and that I will. But there's a few key aspects that we really look at. Now, I would say integrative design is definitely at the center of our model. So what do I mean by that? An integrative design is really something where you're using the smart infrastructure of the building as the brain of everything that's going on. Do the technologies talk to each other? Do they work together? Do they work both ways, or do they work just one way? Do Is it then a platform that's simple and easy to use? We've seen a lot of buildings now that during COVID, during certain lockdowns, just the sheer complexity of getting involved and changing the systems or moving the systems was too much. So buildings just ran like they would if they were at full capacity and times were normal and there wasn't a lockdown. So what's the opposite of that? Having the controls for the building, having the visibility into that, to have some agility with changing times, with changing systems. Integrative design also comes with connectivity, of course. You have to have a good amount of the technologies need to be able to work in the infrastructure and talk together and have the right connectivity. The other thing that I think is really important when we're talking about future proofing is the idea of modularity. So a lot of people talk about, you know, the difference between technologies and what there is kind of that expirational technology where in a couple of years it won't be, the sensor will have died out or needs to be replaced. Is this technology something that is getting regular updates that can be, the parts can be updated and clicked in and clicked out? Is there something that you can work with, or is it just kind of more of a living lab setup where you put sensors in for a while and they work until they don't anymore? So modularity is something that I think is a huge focus for looking at the future proofing of buildings. And that another aspect that I think is really exciting right now is the amount of money going into smart buildings and also sustainability. And of course, sustainability is part of smart buildings because it's one of the things that we measure in building performance and that. So I think everybody knows there's a ton of money going into Europe, to North America, all over the world that's really being pushed into this sector. And there's a lot of opportunities for builders, for tech companies, for organizations that work with consultancy in this. And it's something that the governments are really pushing and something that I think will be a huge part in our industry and our life moving forward. So how do we rein that in? How do we look to the future in this? And do we sit back and wait, or do we go fill in and kind of embrace the future as it is? So if we look at the fact that finance is coming, not only funding this, but also recognizing maybe the value of smart buildings more and more. We're putting some case studies of higher rental values, banks looking at different measurements. They obviously need a certification like this to give higher valuations, or for instance, a smart mortgage. We've seen the green mortgage come up. The smart mortgage is something that we're hoping will follow quite quickly. So you have the financial industry of this, you have the human side of this, of the people coming together, and then of course you have the building itself. And I think what's really interesting as a scientist is that we've never seen as big of a divide in buildings as we have right now. We have buildings that we know are unlivable, that are unhealthy, that should not have people in them, that do have people in them in this 21st century experience. We have, and then we have buildings that are responding to people, recognizing people, doing preferences for them, helping them through their day, and working as more of a technological assistant, helping them throughout their decision-making processes, putting them into scenarios where they're more likely to go into innovative ideas or get to a center of mind flow. It's amazing. And as a scientist, I have to sit back and think, what does this mean? What does this mean that we are at a huge separation between this, and what does this mean, and what is the goal here? We need to push great buildings into the norm, and we need to bring those into the places that will probably become smart last, right? The schools, the nursing homes, this kind of thing. So how do we get smart into the future as quickly as possible? And how do we get smart into the future in the right way? And I think it goes back to what I said in the beginning. This is not about what. We cannot say technology is the answer, because technology is a tool. It has always been a tool. And unless some of the Will Smith movies come to light, it will always be a tool. And it's something that we need to use to facilitate human problems, human connections. So how do we do this is getting back to the why. What do we want from this world of smart? And it can do so much. I am constantly amazed by what our technology partners and what the different solutions in these buildings we are measuring can do. And so I think we really need to say, why are we doing this? Who are we trying to reach the most? How do we normalize this as fast as possible? Because we all deserve at least a healthy and better experience, and maybe something also incredible, because we have been working, I can tell you this as a scientist, we've been working in a way that is so against our human nature and biology for so long that we really don't have any idea what we're capable of in working and living in ways that are facilitating the best out of us. So I think I'm going to invite Wouter back on the stage if he's available, maybe to have a little back and forth. But I think the future in that way, and I'm curious what you think, Wouter, is so bright. But what is our responsibility here? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility. I was just talking to a professor in TU Eindhoven, and not about smart buildings, but more about which kind of materials we use. And he said, well, there is such a hype right now on concrete versus building with wood. And we're not looking where are those materials coming from. And so we really need to dive into all different kind of questions. And it's just at a starting point, I think. So, yeah, there's a lot that we still need to do.
Well, and that's the difference, because we talk about data with smart buildings, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. And it's what are we doing with that data? Is it just that we have it, or is it what we're doing with it and really facilitating it into a process or an opportunity or an algorithm or something like that? So I think, when was it? I guess not even 10 years ago. It was all about just collecting data, right? Data, someday we'll use it. Data. And now it's more about those intelligent systems where what are we doing with data the second we have it? And I think that's really interesting for the future.
Yeah, is that the biggest change you expect to see in the smart building space in 2021, this year?
I think there's going to be a ton of money put into it. I think there's going to be a lot of growth in this sector very, very fast. So if you look at the past and you look at sectors that have grown really, really fast in a short amount of time, it'll probably follow the same scenarios, the good and the bad, but it will do something that we talked about from the beginning, right? We wanted to jumpstart this and get past the years of kind of twiddling our thumbs and not getting to the why, dealing with the what and really getting to why are we doing this? What do we want to improve? Can we make better buildings faster? What can we do with this data? What can we learn about people through measuring them?
Yeah.
And how do we, just make as much progress as fast as possible?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Elizabeth Nelson from Smart Building Certification. It was great to have you with us. I'm looking forward to see you again soon. But we will, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Dankjewel.
Dankjewel. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.